Welcome to the Real Estate Investment Nomad Podcast. I am your host, Natalie Salas, an international real estate expert. Join me as we explore the thrilling world of global real estate. We'll uncover diverse international markets, backed by solid data and engaging insights. Each episode features expert guests from the hottest markets, providing you with the knowledge to invest wisely and successfully. Whether you are a local realtor aiming to go global or an investor curious about international opportunities, this is the podcast for you. Get ready to transform your approach and achieve global real estate success to become a real estate investment nomad. Hello, everybody. This is Natalie with the Real Estate Investment Nomad podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Jen, and I cannot pronounce your last name. It's French. But I will tell you a little bit about how we met. We're connected by a friend, and we're in a network of women entrepreneurs. And we connected because we're talking about international real estate from the day one. And after that, we became, I guess, online friends. And we met recently in person I think in May in Ottawa, after a couple years of talking back and forth and our passion and how we love this space and what we want to do with it. So thank you so much, Jen, for being with us. And please tell us more about your story and your last name too, please.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about my all-time favorite topic, international real estate investing. And my last name is Vienneau. So full name, Geneviève Vienneau. Most people call me Jen because it's much easier and I'm fine with that. So a little bit more about myself. Well, I'm a lawyer. I'm a real estate investor in Canada and abroad. And I am the founder of Via Global Strategy on this side. Via Global Strategy, a consulting firm teaching people to buy their first international real estate investment. So this is a brand new business for me. I have recently taken a step back from my 9 to 5 as a lawyer. So this is a really exciting time.
That's exciting for sure. And what brought you to the space? And I love your slogan is from a lawyer to investor. What does that mean for you and why you chose that path, let's say?
So initially, when I chose that Instagram handle from lawyer to investor, it was like a challenge to myself. And I was actually so scared to just write it down because at the time I was a lawyer, still am, and I wanted to be an investor. I wasn't yet. So choosing that handle was me kind of telling myself, but more so telling the world, listen, this is what I'm doing. And I'm going to go from a lawyer to an investor. And here's my journey. So that handle means a lot to me in the sense that, I made it public. I'm a lawyer and I'm going to become an investor. And here are the steps that I'm taking. So it was a personal choice. And now actually I'm going to go through a rebranding. And because I have achieved what I wanted to achieve with this handle, I am a lawyer who transitioned to an investor. And I feel like it's really close to my heart, but it served its purpose. And now it's time to move on to Via Global Strategy. So soon, you'll see my new rebrand on Instagram, actually.
Nice. No, I love that. I think you just put it out in the universe and you're like, I'm just going to put it out there, and you became that. And now you can teach other people the same with that path that you took. What is the career that you left behind and you decided, what made you be like, okay, I'm done with being an attorney for a specific company and now I'm going to go on my own? Like, how does it look like from before and after for you?
So for the longest time, I did both. And for the longest time, I thought it was okay to do both. I was working 15-hour days. I was waking up before the kids at 5 a.m. to run numbers on deals. I was networking during my lunch hour on Zoom calls. I was going to networking events in the evening after the kids are in bed. And I thought it was okay because I was happy in that, because I was so passionate about what I was doing. But over time, my body started telling me that was not okay. And I worked myself into a burnout. To be frank, it became to be way too much. And even though I loved it and I was so passionate about what I was doing, my my body couldn't tell the difference. I was on high alert all the time. I was always on fight or flight. I was quote unquote resting, but my resting was working on my business, right? So it just became all of it too much. And I had to really take a close look at my priorities, at how I lived my life, at how I wanted to live my life, and realize that even though I did actually love my job as a lawyer from 9 to 5, I wasn't miserable. I was challenged. I work with incredible people. I work on interesting files. It's just not what I wanted to be doing with the prime hours of my day, right? And even though I was at work, mentally, I just kept having ideas for my business and ideas for this and ideas that I never had time to actually act upon because there's only so many hours in a day. So that's what it looked like, the transition. And it was a tough decision, but at the same time, it wasn't, because it just feels so right at this time in my life. And one of my friends, who's also a lawyer, a really close friend, we met in first day of law school, actually, years and years ago. She told me, she's like, Jen, oh my goodness, you're so brave. I would be so scared not to have a paycheck coming every 2 weeks. And I looked at that and my heart sank a bit. And I'm like, I am scared. Oh, I'm scared. Definitely, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. And I am more scared of what would happen if I didn't try 10 years from now than I am scared of not having that paycheck every 2 weeks. So I think that's when my decision became obvious to me.
I know it's like jumping into the pool without knowing if there is water. But I think the thrill of it and the excitement, because you're like, I know I love this. And if I work on this, I'm not going to stop probably forever. And when you have that bug and you're like, it just feels right. And I just want to go for it. I feel like I wanted to do that about a year and a half ago. I left corporate in January 2023. Now we're August 2024. And it's been like a roller coaster up and down. And at the beginning was like, okay, I'm okay. I have some savings. And then you have to make it happen because you know that you have fixed costs and fixed expenses wherever you go. And when you don't have that cushion, it's like you start freaking out. And at the same time, you're like, yeah, that pushes you up to just do the craziest things into your business. They're like, I need to innovate. I need to do this. I need to do more sales, although I don't like selling. And I'm like, but I'm just have to go to the next level of my comfort zone because now is the time, now or never. So then I gave myself runway. And I know I was like, we need to take off, we need to take off. And eventually it did. It didn't do it like this, but it went slowly, progressively. And I think over time we've seen more progress. But it is definitely a journey of you have to really be adventurous and really like the thrill of what you love to do and just don't stop. Like I just haven't stopped so far. And I know we're launching this podcast that I'm like, I had never run a podcast, but I know that I love chatting with people and I love asking questions about how you made it or how you did it or how you're doing it right now. So I think that's what kind of connect us together. And let's see what happens because it's our passion. We can probably do it 7 days a week if we had the time. And when that is the feeling, I think that you connect with people in the same mindset. And that keeps going and going and going. And that has been my biggest motivation. For you, you have a new project, Via Global Strategy. Can you tell us more about that and how it's going to look like in the future so people can understand, how they can contact you or for what specific questions, they can go to you for advice?
So when founding Via Global Strategy, I have big dreams, I have big goals, and I see the future in a certain way. But in starting a new business, I really wanted to focus on one thing and do that one thing very good, very well for my clients. So the one thing that I'm focusing on as I begin this new journey is to teach people how to buy their first international vacation rental and teaching them from A to Z, from choosing a destination all the way to your listing going live and making sure that you have, the right setup for bookkeeping and tax purposes, right? And there's a lot that happens in between that. And the first part is very sexy, right? You're looking, everything looks beautiful. All renderings look beautiful on paper. but there's a lot more to it than finding a beautiful property. And when I first started looking for my first international investment, I ran into so many, I want to say hurdles, but they were like self-imposed almost. Like I was just spinning my wheels, not really. I was looking and I was working and I was analyzing deals, but I didn't really know exactly what I was looking for. And so I was getting nowhere, but I was just working and working and working myself to the ground and to burnout, right? So once I got really clear on what I was looking for, then it became much, much easier and everything was more smooth sailing from there. But I see that a lot when people reach out to me on Instagram, and I talk to a lot of people who are interested in investing internationally, but they just don't know where to start. They're like, yeah, I would like a vacation rental. I do maybe some of them do already vacation rentals in Canada or in the US, and they want to expand, but they just really don't know where to start. And that's where I come in.
Perfect. So would that be like a course setting or like a coaching one-on-one or in a group setting? How can people understand more about this? Because sometimes they're afraid to go on ask one-on-one and have like, I just don't know what I want. I'm just curious. So they're like a group setting in a way. So I don't know if you had that feedback from the people that reach out to you on how they want to ingest this information.
So I'm working on my masterclass, which is going to be launched in the fall. The masterclass is going to be a group setting, but it's going to be a very select group. It's going to be 10 to 12 people, a small class. I want this for my first class because I really want to dive in with them and offer a lot of value, but I also want feedback. It's my first class. How are we going to make it better? So I want to offer it to a small group of a few people. So that's going to be 8 sessions. It's live on Zoom, and it's going to be in a group setting. I also offer one-on-one coaching, one-on-one consultations. So my coaching starts on a 3-month basis, or the one-on-one consultations could be just an hour. Pick my brain. You have a specific problem, book an hour with me. For me, I learn very well one-on-one because I like to go at my own pace. I like to go fast. I like to ask my questions. I like to even design what I want to work. Okay, this week I want to learn about joint ventures, or next week I really want to learn about how to optimize your vacation rental, how to make sure that it's making you as much money as it can, right? So to me, when I get coaching, I really like the one-on-one aspect, but I also really enjoy the group coaching because in a group setting, you get to learn from other people's questions. So you don't always get to do all the mistakes. You have to learn from other people's mistakes too, right? So that's kind of the advantage about the group setting as well. And I'm excited to be offering both because I know that there's different types of learners, and also offered at different price points because a group setting is a different investment than a one-on-one, right? So to make it more accessible to as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So for you, like the first investment that you did, if so, other people that are watching, what brought you to decide on the country first? And second, what were the steps that you had to follow for yourself? How do you know this is the one country and this is the one location that I want to set up my first Airbnb, let's say?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually a bit unpredictable, the way that it happened to me, because I always thought, oh, my first investment internationally is going to be in Mexico. I have this love for Mexico. I lived there for a number of years. I speak Spanish. I still have a lot of contacts in Mexico. I could go on and on about Mexico, the food, the culture, the people. I don't have to sell you on Mexico. I know you love it, but
Yeah.
but and also I really believe in the tourism in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Mexico does tourism in a way that is exceptional. They just have their shit together. Pardon my French. They are really good at tourism. They pick destinations, a city They develop it, they build, the people come, and then they offer really good amenities, resorts, beaches, food. Food is so good.
Yeah.
And they just do tourism really well. So I really believe in Mexico's economy as it relates to tourism. And millions of people agree with me because the Cancun airport, I don't have the latest stats with me, but there's so many people landing in Cancun every year, and it just keeps on increasing.
Yeah.
So I thought for sure, oh, it's going to be Mexico. It's going to be Mexico for sure. And I did, like I was telling you earlier, all this research. I ran numbers early in the morning, late at night. I did so many comparables. I learned about the market, and I was really looking and analyzing Tulum at the time. That was a few years ago. And I drove my realtor crazy, and shout out actually to Elements Realty in Tulum, who are a fantastic team of realtors. They serve real estate investors very well. And I have to give them a shout out. I'm not affiliated because they worked so hard for me. And in the end, I went there and I decided not to buy. And there was so much research, so much work, so much time and effort, and my poor realtor who genuinely did so much good work for me. I wasted my time, wasted his time, but that's because I didn't really know what I was looking for. And I realized when I went to Tulum that really I was looking for a good investment. Yes, the numbers worked, but I was looking for a combination of a lifestyle investment and a real estate investment. So I was looking for a property that both is going to improve our lifestyle, that I'm going to want to take my kids there, I'm going to want to travel with my family there, but also at the same time brings us money. And if you imagine a Venn diagram, there's two circles. On one hand is lifestyle, on the other hand is investment. And right in the middle, where those two circles meet, is the star property, is the property that all improves your lifestyle and is a good investment. It also makes you money. So I realized that when I went to Tulum, I had gone to Tulum years before, but as you know, the Tulum from 10, 15 years ago is much different than the Tulum today. And I got there and I said, this is great, but I don't have a strong need to come back. And I don't have a strong need to bring my family here. And I would come back, I'm not going to say no to Tulum, but not enough to make me want to buy somewhere there. And that's when I realized that I wasn't just looking for an investment from a numbers perspective, but I was looking also for the lifestyle. And that's what I teach my students. Don't ignore that. If you're going to invest internationally, you want it to be worth it to you and your family and your friends. And because why not? Because you can, right? You can have it. You can have both the investment and the lifestyle. So that is a really long answer to your question, and I haven't even answered your question yet.
Because I believe that Tulum has been hyped quite a bit, and I understand why you decided otherwise, because a lot of our clients come, hey, I want Tulum. I'm like, okay, when we put the requirements together and the budget together and the lifestyle together, probably what they can afford is a one-bedroom apartment or two max. And if they have a big family, I always ask them, why Tulum? Because if you have a big family, you're going to get a very tiny house unless you go a little farther. And then, of course, we can go talking about that specific topic for hours. And I guide clients into like, okay, if we're looking at our numbers, the appreciation there probably is almost at the top of the market. So you're buying almost New York prices. It's gonna go up, but slowly, and it's already a mature market. So if they're looking for return or of investments or at least appreciation, that might not be the best location, unfortunately. And many people come because of the advertising online, because it looks beautiful, because once you see it online, videos, everybody's talking about it, and you get there, you're like, okay, this is nice for a weekend, but if I can live here? And when they ask, and especially because if you have family, right, you have 3 kids, and you want to be having the beach very, very accessible, that is not the case in Tulum. You have to go through a lot of hoops to get through to the beach, and that is exhausting for parents. It's like, how can I just not walk to the beach? No, you can't. You have to go through the beach club and this, and you have to pay a lot of money to get in, and eventually it gets boring if you want to go to the beach every day. And gets expensive if you have a family, because you have to pay per person. But these are the little things that they look beautiful online. A professional like the one that you had explain everything around the numbers. but then you decided against that. And also after that, what was the country that caught your heart after that? Where do you go?
So after that, in the end, I ended up investing in Costa Rica, and I ended up buying a property there in Costa Rica. And that was a bit of I did a bit of mental gymnastics, because I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm cheating on Mexico. Like I always thought that would be my first investment internationally, would be in Mexico. And, that's just, I always thought that. But then when I started looking really at my reality, at our lifestyle, at my family, Costa Rica just made sense. But then I really told myself, it's not either or, because even if I invested first in Costa Rica, doesn't mean that I'm not going to invest in Mexico next. And to be clear, like, there are plenty of family-friendly, beautiful, amazing places in Mexico. It just so happened that a good deal with the right numbers in the right location came across in Costa Rica. So that's where I decided to go first. But Mexico is definitely still on my radar, and probably the next. So I had to tell myself, I'm not cheating on Mexico. I can do both. It's not one or the other.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's a good start that you started in Costa Rica to get at least understand the market and the differences. You can talk to somebody why one or the other at this point, since you've done so much research.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what made sense in Costa Rica that you were like, this is it, besides the numbers? Was it a bigger space or better location? What was it that made it?
I really liked it. So the town is called Playas del Coco. It's about 30 minutes from Liberia Airport. So I like the proximity to the airport, number one. Number two, it is a very walkable town. So you can easily walk to restaurants, walk to coffee shops, little stores, walk to the beach. And the beach, although it's not as stunningly beautiful as the one in Mexico is kind of hard to beat.
Yeah.
The beach is very open to the community. So the beachfront has a little, I don't want to say a boardwalk, like a path, but it's not all built up with hotels and restaurants. People actually go walk along the beach, and it's really open to the community. And you have Costa Rican people who come watch the sunset, and foreigners who are there on vacation. It's a really good mix. The community itself, I really like that it was a mixture. It wasn't not just Tulum tourism, basically. So it felt authentic. And I don't want to compare apples to oranges, but in terms of what attracted me to that place, it was, the feeling, it felt more authentic. It was just very family friendly. People are driving around in golf carts, you can easily, the villa is a small house, like the small house that we bought is a block from the beach. So we can easily walk to the beach with the children. And it comes with a plunge pool, and it's it has a secure gate. But other than that, it doesn't have any other common amenities. Like, it doesn't have a gym or a reception or some fancy amenities, which is good because we don't need that. And it also means no condo fees.
Yeah.
So we don't have any condo fees, which made the numbers very, very appealing for that investment. So ultimately, it was a mix of essentially that lifestyle and investing that made this deal like the right one for us at this time.
I like that you said that, because Tulum used to be that connection with the locals and everything until it gets taken over. And I feel like not only Mexico, every country, that we do have an area that is very popular, and then they start mining the area for profits, that they it makes it less attractive for normal people that just want to go enjoy the sunset, like you said. And I felt that in Costa Rica as well. I mean, it's a compromise on the beach. The beaches are different. It's not the Caribbean, exactly the same white sand beaches, but it is a nice lifestyle, and at least you get the sunset, or you can just go either side of the country, get a different experience. And to me, it was the Pacific side was a little too wild because the waves are crazy, but people that surf love it. But I was like, no, I need a very quiet beach like Mexico. So that's like you have the variety of picking and choosing in the country that has both options. And I won't call it corporate greed, because it's more like But it is kind of breaks it for some tourists that really want the authentic feel, that connect with the locals, that merge together. And I felt like Merida was that city for me instead of Tulum, because Tulum is super packed. I think everything's for profit. And there's always somebody trying to make money out of somebody. And because it's popular, it attracts that. But for families and people who want to retire, it's just totally a no go, because the lifestyle doesn't match the circle that you mentioned. The overlap is not worth their investment. But yeah, I like that you mentioned that, because sometimes we don't talk about not only the benefits, but also the challenges. Are there any risks that you saw or consider before going either direction with these two countries? What do you have a list of, these are the things I need to look out for because I've done my research and I can encounter this on the ground?
So to me, one of the biggest risks, and that applies to any country in investing internationally, is not doing your due diligence with the property itself, right? So everything looks beautiful on paper. You can buy a very beautiful set of drawings. It's really easy to get caught up in the beautiful designs and the romantic idea of it. And very often the designs don't look exactly the same as the finished product, right? Like the renderings are not the same, the furniture is not the same, like everything. So I would say that is the number one risk, is know what you're buying. Essentially, is it a respected developer? Have they completed past projects? What were their timelines like? What is the quality like? And a lot of these things, so you can find so much online by looking at the developer's website, but of course they're not going to be like, hey, our last product really sucked, so that's your first stop, is looking and finding as much information as you can about the developer if you're buying a new build, of course. But also going deeper, I join like Facebook groups. I join local Facebook groups.
Nice. Yeah.
That talk about the community. That often a lot of these communities where there's a lot of tourism have a lot of expats, right? So a lot of expats have these Facebook groups, and then you don't even have to ask questions, although you can, but you can do a search in the Facebook group and see if anybody talked about the development, see kind of like what the chatter is around it. And of course, use your judgment, because, not everything you read online is 100% accurate, but this is how you can start to gather pieces of information from here, from there. And then by going there actually in person and speaking to anyone and everyone who, who is willing to talk about the development in the community. How are people, like I ask that to my drivers all the time, like, oh, I see there's a lot of building here, like there's a lot of development. How are people in the community feeling about all these people coming here? What's the sentiment kind of around all the new developments? And sometimes locals are frustrated. We've seen internationally more and more protests, anti-tourism, like, stop coming, like, we are done, we have enough people here. Like,
Yeah.
but you also see the opposite. And what I saw when I went on the ground in Costa Rica and I was asking that question, was that people in the area were happy about the developments because they had a rough time during economically things. People were having a hard time finding jobs, but now there's plenty of jobs, there's more work, money is being put in the region. So the sentiment that you were hearing is that people were happy about the development because it was helping the economy. And that's important. And that's not something you can find online, right? Like, that's not something that's going to be on the developer's website so that's when it's important to do your research, and you just gather information and you take everything with a grain of salt, and then you make your own views,
Yeah, I think technology is what, in the US, at least in Canada, you can Google anything about any business and you can find more information about it. But in other countries, you step out of that, maybe Europe as well. But if you step out of developing countries or people who use technology, but to a certain extent, the ratings and reviews are not up and center. There is not like, hey, I'm a business, leave me a review. And if you do a bad job, probably you don't want anybody to leave your review as a developer, because it has happened to us that we are observing. And it's so different to be on the ground than to be Googling online, to actually hear what is happening as it's happening. And there's so many WhatsApp groups, at least in Mexico, probably in Costa Rica, it has to be too, that they're talking between realtors, like, okay, this developer is behind, and they already kind of fail on this or on that, and everybody knows, but they don't go and publish it online because nobody wants to bash anybody online and get in trouble or lose that listing or potential to work with them again. But at the same time, you don't know all this information unless you work with somebody who is plugged into the community and understands this. Nobody's going to give you the bad news about something they're trying to sell you.
No.
Like, it's not going to happen. And for us, has been like a transparency, right? Like if we hear about a developer that is not finishing or is not doing what they say they're going to do or how they're going to finish it, we definitely will tell clients like, hey, this developer is a red flag, or we have ratings for them. Like if they're in the red, that there's no way you should buy that. You're going to lose your money because they won't finish. They haven't finished the last 3 projects, or they're behind for 2 years. When you expect your place to be ready in 2021 and it's 2023 and it's nothing yet, that's kind of a super red flag. And the most I've seen is with our attorney in Mexico, that she will have to take care of some of our friends that now we're friends, but they have bought with somebody else and the developer hasn't delivered. And we don't talk about that publicly because I feel like somebody will get scared about that and not do anything in that area. But I think there's some conversations that need to be had about what's happening for real on the ground. And this is not for everybody. We're not ruling everybody, but we categorize people by type of risk, which many realtors don't want to do. They just want to sell you everything. Everything is beautiful. The renders, everything looks good in paper, as you mentioned. But at the time of the delivery, you're like, what is this? What are the rest of my amenities? You mentioned that I have access to the beach, and now I don't. And that was the selling point for your development because I have a beach club. So that was very frustrating for some people that we talked to. And I'm glad that you did your research and just getting to the local groups, as you mentioned. It's so important because it takes time to read all the reviews, to get plugged in with the community. But if you're actually buying something, probably would be a good idea to join those groups and start observing, asking questions, because otherwise, how do you know? Nobody's gonna go and post something online unless it's really, really bad, and unless a lot of people are upset, like a group of maybe 10 or more, and then they can go about going either legally against the developer doesn't perform, or gather more people and just people just know because they know. But
yeah, I've had the experience once actually. So a good tip is whenever you're looking at a specific development or developer is to look on Facebook, and if there's any Facebook groups that exist about this development or developer. And I've even seen as far as Facebook groups made out of people, let's say 10, 20, 30 people who have had an extremely horrible experience with a developer. And the whole group's purpose is to warn people not to buy with that developer. And it's horrible that it has to come to that. But I think if somebody has been wronged and, it's their right to warn other people against the same situation.
Yeah, I think because there's the only way to kind of share the knowledge. I mean, with everything available online, you can, and if you want to, you could. But then just like you mentioned, you have to sort through a lot of people that are complaining about, oh, there's a bug kind of thing. Oh, you're in the rainforest. So
there's a cucaracha in my shower.
There's like that level of exaggeration to reality. And you can probably, if you're a smart person, mitigate what's real and what's exaggeration. But if a lot of people that they look, they've gone through it, they know a thing or two, they look like a smart person, or real people, right? There are so many bots too that actually share this information with facts. And that's a different story than complaining there's a bug in your shower, because it's going to happen. I think I read some Airbnb reviews when I was looking for places to stay in different cities. They will complain about the bugs. And I'm like, we're in the rainforest. Like, is this like an Airbnb review, which I understand, I respect, but we're in the space of where the animals live. We're not the other way around. So that's funny too. So I like that you mentioned, you go deeper in the research, and not only the hard data on the numbers, but also, let's say, the soft skills and understanding the people, reading in between the lines, joining groups that perhaps you might consider a different country, but you just join just so you can start listening what's happening. And for your work and what you're going to be doing next, will this be kind of part of what you're going to be talking about and teaching other people on how to pay attention for these cues, especially if these are some risks they need to consider? What would be the strategy on how people can either look for more information, join a Facebook group with you as well, or how will it work? Or you're still working on it, like the how?
So the how will be the masterclass that's going to start in September and at the end of September. And included in that masterclass will also be the community. So a Facebook group where people can exchange, ask questions. And I'm really hoping that Facebook group will grow beyond that, just to have a space for international real estate investors to bounce ideas off each other, to talk about developers, right? To have this space to learn, and to also there's power in seeing other people taking action and other people doing it. And it makes it seem more achievable once you get in that space where you talk to people who own properties abroad, where you're not just talking to your uncle who's like, oh, that's too risky,
Yes.
How are you going to fix the toilet if if your property is in Mexico?
Yeah.
So talking to people who actually do it, as opposed to taking advice from people who they have good intention. Obviously, they're just trying to protect you, but may not know, right? Those risks can be mitigated. There's always risks, of course, but there's often ways to lower those risks. So yeah, so having a Facebook group, which now there are Facebook group about international real estate investing, but what I'm noticing is that most of these groups are by realtors or for realtors or to sell, right? So they're groups where you just see listings, but it's not necessarily like a conversation about, oh, I'm looking in Merida, let's say, what are some things I should watch out for? And then you can talk to somebody who actually has a property in Merida, So I think that would add a lot of value. It's not created yet, but it's on my to-do list to create a Facebook group. So watch out for it shortly. It should be out there.
Awesome. No, I like the community part, and especially when you join communities from expats, by expats, because otherwise you're being sold something at all times and you're like, this is not, but I guess after you've seen some of the interactions in the group, you can mitigate that.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited to see you later this year in September. Well,
in a few weeks.
Tomorrow is September, feels like, or in 2 days. And whenever this podcast releases, probably we're already at the event. So I want to share a little bit about this event we're going to in September.
Yeah, so we are going to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is very exciting. We are going to attend an event called Nomad Capitalist Live. And it's being hosted by Andrew H.
Henderson. Yeah.
Henderson. Yes. And Andrew Henderson wrote a book called The Nomad Capitalist, and a pretty popular book about all things on how to live a more global life. And his tagline is go where you're treated best. And that's how he has led his life, and that's how he's conducting his business. He has also a business where he advises people on how to go where you're treated best. So this event is going to focus on all things international, like global tax planning, second citizenships, second residencies, international real estate investing, excitingly enough. And I'm really looking forward to meeting people there, to seeing the kind of crowd that this event attracts. It's going to be my first time going. I do know people who have gone in the past, but it's my first time. So that's what I'm most excited about, is to connect with other people, other weird and adventurous people like us.
Yeah. My friends are like, why are you going all the way to Malaysia? I'm like, why not? Because a lot of the conferences in the US are in the US by
Mhm.
US investors, and the market here is so big too. I'm not saying that the US, the economy, it's still like for real estate, especially for commercial, still growing. But if you stay in the same place with everybody else, it's like you're not looking outside the box. And I'm like, I'm curious to know what's happening over there and how people are doing business over there. I mean, the world's a big place besides the US. So I was curious. I'm like, yeah, let's go to Malaysia. Why not? And I've been there once before. And I think it's a beautiful country, so inexpensive. And I didn't know that it was so inexpensive to, it's next to Singapore, but it's totally the kind of the opposite in a way. It's more, I'm excited to go and see the culture too and spend more time there as well.
Yeah, I've been once to Kuala Lumpur and the food was fantastic. Amazing food. Kuala Lumpur is it's a cool city. It's just a nice place to be. So I'm looking forward to spending time there. But mostly I'm really excited. I'm going there as a sponge, just to learn everything and absorb everything that I can and to bring it back here to my clients to provide more value in my business. So I'm really excited about that too, just the learning portion.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it because I think by having exposure to people who have done it before, and I think that's the whole intention of this podcast too, because it's like in real estate investment nomad. We don't have a home. I mean, we have a home, of course. We have a couple or a few homes that we go to, but at the same time, having that open mind to be in different places and absorbing from different cultures and just learning from different cultures as well. It's just super exciting to me. And yeah, me too. I'll be going there with my networking hat and be like, who do I need to meet so I can get more information that I don't know about? Because how do you know how things are done in Asia? There's a big market over there too. Or how do you know in Europe, which is pretty well known and mature market, but Africa, there's some areas, Africa, Australia, like the world is so big that I'm like, oh my God, my head is gonna explode because I'm so excited for this conference. And I'm not affiliated or promoting this by any means, but I think by being connected with this type of communities, it's back to community. And acknowledge we can bring this back to our clients that we work with every day and be like, well, in this country they do this differently, and yes, in here it might be slightly different, but these are the benefits and these are the risks. I think mitigating that and absorbing like a sponge, like you mentioned, is super important because at that point you can give better advice or guidance to your clients.
Definitely. And I have the perfect example because you and I met a few years ago, and literally through networking, Instagram, through having this common connection and interest. And then yesterday I was talking to another real estate investor who was interested in investing abroad. And then she was telling me, my biggest pain point, like my biggest challenge is I don't know how I would find a realtor in the market that I'm not familiar with. And then I'm like, I have the right person for you. And I'm meeting her tomorrow, and her name is Natalie. So the more people you meet and the more you're able to help your clients and provide them with solutions, right? So it's so cheesy, but it's all about your network. Like your network is your net worth. That's hard for me, for a French speaker, to say.
Yes,
but it's true. It's true.
no, absolutely. I think that's how we stay connected too, because I have some clients that probably are from Canada and they're in the baby steps of like, I'm curious and I can have them connect with you, but I don't speak French, but I'll be like, you should talk to Jen. She knows almost like everyone's, we share our notes even. We kind of like, hey, do you hear about this article I sent to you or you sent it to me? And we're always exchanging information. I mean, it's about all share. For me, it's all about sharing. Like that's why I created this podcast, because the feeling that I got when I go to other countries, especially Latin America and my culture to Peru, I'm from Peru, is that people don't share because they're afraid of competition. And when they share, most realtors in Mexico that we work with, they don't want to share their listings because they are afraid when they take their listings. And I'm like, no, because we want to sell your listing. We have a client that might be interested. So that mindset is just very difficult for me to, not to battle, but to work with, because I'm like, I had to poke, I had to be patient, and I had to adapt too. Because in Yucatan, Merida, people are more enclosed. So it's not like they give you information just like that. You had to earn their trust. You had to work with them. I had to understand at the beginning because I was going full force and I had to push my brakes. And I was like, okay, this is not my country. I need to understand first before I'm pushy or impatient that they don't give me the information that I need. And all these cultural differences, I think, unless you live it and are there, it's so different. It's so hard to explain or to absorb by somebody else.
Definitely. It takes such a level of awareness, self-awareness, but also cultural awareness and tact and judgment and all these soft skills that they're not given, right? Like you gain them as you live in different countries, as you travel to different places, as you meet different people. Like those are not skills that you're born with. So it takes, I don't think people realize, but it takes a really high degree of those skills in order to be able to successfully operate in the world of international real estate investing. And those are really important and are easy to ignore. And I think some people will face big roadblocks and not even knowing why.
Yeah.
But that could be a huge part of it. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. It was so insightful talking to you, and I feel like we can always talk for hours. And for the sake of time, I have only my last question, and we've been asking this to every single guest, and is to nominate somebody to be a future guest in this podcast that you think is a good fit, because the international real estate space is not that big. So we're going by recommendations. So do you have anybody in mind that you could suggest should be here?
I'm going to nominate my friend, former coach, fellow international real estate investor. She just got the keys to her beautiful property in Tulum. She bought exactly at the right time. Aki. And she is on Instagram, a financially savvy girl. She teaches financial literacy, and she's also a real estate investor and locally and internationally. So I think she would be a great fit for your podcast.
Awesome. Perfect. I'm going to make a note of that, and we're going to for sure contact her. Thank you so much, Jen. How can people find you right now? Because you're going to change your branding soon. I know you mentioned that, but for now, how can they find you?
So for now, people can find me on Instagram at From Lawyer to Investor. Mm-hmm. And soon people will be able to find me on Instagram at via_global strategy. I am also working on building my website. Well, actually, I'm lying. Somebody is building my website. It is not me. I hired a very professional person to work on my website because I was getting frustrated by the most tiniest details. Anyway, I had to offload that. And my website is going to be exactly my business name, viaglobalstrategy.com. It should be up and running by the time we're in Malaysia. So by the time this airs, I think it should be up and running. So viaglobalstrategy.com is where people can find me. And if your listeners are interested in joining our masterclass, we can probably leave, a link in the show notes as well as the website. And I could offer a special discount for people if they mention your podcast. So
awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have a link for this YouTube. It will be at YouTube, and also it will be in every podcast platform as well. Well, thank you again. And I'm so excited. We're going to get to travel and meet in a few weeks. And with that, we'll have more content available in both Instagrams.
Exactly. And we get to eat really good Malaysian noodles called mee goreng, and I can't wait.
Yes, for everybody else, please follow Jen in Instagram. And for any questions, you can post them in the comments below. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. See you,
Jen.
Thank
you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investment Nomad podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired you to explore new horizons in global real estate. Remember, the world is full of opportunities waiting to be discovered. And with the right insights, you can turn those opportunities into successful investments. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content possible. Don't forget to follow us in social media for more resources and updates. Until next time, my friends, this is Natalie Salas, encouraging you to think big, invest globally, and transform your real estate journey. Safe travels and happy investing.